I think where a lot of manifestation coaches miss the mark is there tends to be a lot of victim blaming, and there tends to be a lot of misunderstandings of the actual intricacies about how manifestation and how shifting a belief system actually works. I've heard countless different creators state that if you are attracting in, say, like an abusive situation or like a narcissistic person or something like that, then it's your fault. And as a result of that, there's something that you need to change because of the fact that you're always manifesting. But I think whenever these concepts come up, it's like, so yes, technically speaking, you are always generating reality, right? But to simplify that you simply attracted somebody in that abused you to, I guess, that alone would be, I guess, an oversimplification of the underlying mechanisms that then cause these experiences to happen. So your subconscious has been with you from the time that you've been in the womb, before you're even yourself conscious on this physical plane. And it's been absorbing energies and thoughts and belief systems and all of these experiences up until the point in which we are having this conversation right now. So there are so many things that we won't even consider to be a subconscious thing that is essentially aligning us to a frequency. Like, for instance, the sun rising and setting seems like, I guess a very obvious give and take thing that would happen. But it's because we are aligned into this reality in which that is essentially the standard of what we are experiencing. Because say there's another timeline or another reality in which the sun doesn't exist, but some other giant floating orb that emits a different kind of light exists. Your perception and what you would believe to happen would be a little bit different. But because your subconscious is seeing every day the sunrise consistently, you know that to be true. So a lot of what manifestation really is kind of taking those things that we knew to be true at a core level through our experiences. And a lot of times they've been insanely traumatic, very heavy, very difficult, very complex, and very nuanced situations that we go through that then led us to these beliefs, that then led us to then experience these things on whatever basis they were. Sometimes a belief system could be as simple as it's possible for this to happen, therefore it did happen. Because if you have a belief system that something is impossible to happen to you, as in if you have a belief system saying like, oh, I never get stopped by the cops or something. You know what I mean? Say if you had that belief system, then you would quite literally never get stopped by the cops. But if somebody's walking around with a simple belief system of, okay, well, that's just a normal thing in everyday life, that, it's a potential, then that alone can simply trigger an experience like that. And for the most part, a lot of what we manifest tends to be what we are more focused on and what tends to be more prominent within our belief systems. But the human experience does have a certain element of randomness and a certain level of perceived limitations that we impose on ourselves until we essentially start to become aware of the concepts of manifestation or conscious reality generation. But I say all this to say that while technically, yes, you are manifesting everything, to simply state that you are to blame for certain experiences, it's kind of, it doesn't fully encapsulate the entire concept or the entire construct of what we are experiencing. Because essentially we quite literally come into this experience as a blank slate, right? And then we're meant to have these individualized experiences and then come to our own conclusions and then try to build the life that we want and then kind of figure things out from that standpoint. So we are quite literally wired to be human, to have a human experience, to have human responses, to have all these things that we deem as human, having these intense emotions, having these intense experiences. And it's not to say that there's no capacity to, over time, master them and to get better at what we give our attention to and what we give our focus to and all of those things. But it is to state that not everything is inherently our fault simply because there are structures that are put in place that we adhere to or we were adhering to for most of us decades before we became aware of conscious creation. And in tarot, that's actually referenced to be kind of like the Wheel of Fortune, or even like the Hierophant, or even sometimes like the Emperor energy, where there are certain structures, there are certain ideas, there are certain things that were put into place before we set foot into this human experience. So there are a lot of structures that we are navigating around, be it consciously or subconsciously. So it's insanely important to give yourself grace because it's almost like When a child who has like a lack of motor skills spills something, right? Are you going to be like, oh, you dumb fucking child, and you're going to be like angry at the child? Or are you going to understand that because of their lack of skills in which the environment that they're in, that it's simply going to happen? You know what I mean? Like, and it's not to say that we're children. Obviously, we're more self aware than children. But you got to think about the concept of what manifestation is compared to what most humans are normally experiencing. Most humans have, and including, me, and including most people up until the point in which they find out about manifestation, have the understanding that reality is generated externally, not internally. So to then shift decades worth of programming overnight, for most things, just isn't realistic. Like for certain things, yeah, you can go ahead and they pop into your experience fast because you might not have as much resistance to it. But for things that you might have experienced that were really traumatic or very heavy or just whatever you might be, or even consistent, then it might be a little bit harder to deconstruct that belief system and then move forward from there. But this video is getting long. I'm gonna make a part two, and I'll see you guys there. And if you're interested, I do manifestation coaching as well as tarot readings, as well as mediumship readings. I like teaching anything metaphysical because I try my best to approach it from the most objective lens. And I mean that in the sense of what applies to everybody, not just me. Like, what is the overall objective truth that I guess everybody has to experience? And I try my best to approach whatever scenario that you might come to me with from that standpoint. But either way, peace and blessings. This video is going on a little bit longer than I intended, so hope you guys have a good one.